to Mahalo and welcome to another live digital conversation here on the Polynesian Eyes podcast. It's kind of a late one or early morning, depending on how you look at it. It's 1:23 a.m. here in southern Nevada, northwest Las Vegas. It was another warm day, about 102 degrees, and
Ooh,
nice and toasty, as just the way we
yep.
like it. Um, and it's really nice here in Las Vegas. It wasn't as humid. 102 degrees in South Central Texas is humid and not very comfortable. But here in Vegas, it's a little toasty but good. Mr. Aotearoa, how were things in your neck of the woods?
Mr. Aotearoa is doing very well today. Tua. I mean, it's a little, sad here. At the moment, just regarding internal family affairs. Been very busy. Just preparing my home to have some lots of family members come in. I think many Polynesian families can identify with this. I think in our household there's four of us, and that four over the week for preparing this funeral is gonna probably go up to 20 individuals in the home.
Hmm.
So hey, we I grew up like that. I'm just grateful that I have in-laws and a wife to help me to prepare the home to have my families come over so we can do what we need to do and send off a good family member to the next life, even though he's already there, but just the proper proceedings that we can mourn the proper way. So that's what we're going through here. Nice and chilly. It's our winter, nice cold here in Aotearoa, but everything is going well, Tua. So yep.
Mahalo, Masi. I think it's really appropriate that you're sharing, this this cultural tie that we have to family, our social connections, our familial, and then also our religious connections and our faith, and all these things come together to make us who we are as Polynesians. And that's really going to be intertwined with a lot of the topics we're going to discuss today. We're going to start off with, I think you said, Masi, was a request from one of our viewers to
Yes,
respond
sir.
and react to some videos.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Kind of give some context there, Masi, on what's the video and what's the context and kind of what we're going to be looking at here shortly.
Yes. We've had a comment from one of our viewers that asks us to react to, the previous videos. We've kind of had a segment on just explaining the Christianity versus the ancient religion of Polynesia, and from that sparked the viewer to put a question or a comment on one of our videos to react to a Palangi lady regarding the Mormonism versus kind of the Polynesian culture, belief, and some of, and maybe Christian. You can go even beyond Mormonism, but Christianity is imposed on kind of, let's say, oppressing maybe the Polynesian people and not being fully accurate and all that kind of stuff. So this is her take, and we'll be reacting to it. I don't know if there's anything else to it you think um, that I'm kind of missing that maybe we'll be kind of going into our next segment or.
No, this is great. Before we jump into it, we'll have those videos. We'll react to it. This is a couple comments here from T Style. It says malo malo kautama kaupama whakamaa mai e tau kumete ke polish. Get it
Oh,
ready. Get it
get it
ready, T
ready.
Style. Mussy had some Fijian waka. He's going to throw a
Iyo,
digital Fijian kava your way.
mao dem gi whakahata. I mean, just we're having a putu in our family Tongan style, so I'm saving this kava bag from all the way from Nandi. I don't know if you see that. Nandi
Mm.
market get abe gihe, palu pe gihe palu pe mo family o tari aki me whaka eiki. So
See,
I'm
Mussy,
saving that. So
Mahalo
Eh.
ko e descendant a takombau o kutohe ni hingoa he kawa.
Mahalo be. Kainga foki a tako pau mo maafu mo e tui hatakalaua mo e tu mo e tui karu poluso kwa miri be.
I kai go hinga ke hingoa he kawa. Si ke hingoa he kawa. Go siwa at the top. O
Eh,
ku asia e hingoa e a takombau ko Kumar.
Kumar. Oh, eh, Kumar,
Eh?
that's what you're saying. Eh. Se ka gu alu e kau fisi alu he hingoa e kau tonga kava dealer. Kai ke toi tohi e Wakanda pe koe ha. Alu e mea u whakatau o tu waki le reiki he. Kakai Palangi
Hey,
mo tu.
Marie, Marie. He also says, like the haircut. Yeah, it's the buzz. Kamata hoke afu. Eh? You know,
Mm.
when it gets the summertime, you need to look sharp. Hey, oh, like he says right here. Look sharp, Tonga. Oh, Yahweh.
Eh.
Maria, I remember those t-shirts. Masi, you remember those? Like
Yes.
everybody who came to Tonga, that was like the
That
t-shirt you had to
you gotta
buy.
get one. Eh. Eh.
Oh, Masi, look, join us. Malo Seni.
Hey, what's
Ofatu.
up, Sandy? Ofatu.
All right. So we're gonna jump into it like Masi mentioned. Let's put a banner together here. Um, so we can describe what this segment is, and that's LDS Church colonization. And then
Mm.
we'll have a question mark, right? Because that's kind of like the theme we've seen, not just from the question from the viewer, but also some other podcasters and comments that we get online is, yeah, Tonga didn't get colonized, but you've been colonized through Christianity and that whole mindset. So let me see here. Let's start with this video. Let's add this one to the stage
5%.
real quick. So let's walk through this video right here and react. Let me know if you don't hear it, Mr. Aotearoa.
All
The
right,
most
let's
Mormon
go.
country on the entire planet is Tonga. Tonga is 65% Mormon, which means that by percentage of population, Tonga is actually more Mormon than Utah. People are always really surprised to hear this statistic because what is a random religion started by Joseph Smith in the 1800s doing all the way in Tonga? This happened through over 100 years of missionary work and Mormon religious colonization to Tonga.
Ooh.
Here's the temple in Tonga. Here's photos of Mormon missionaries dating back for a very long time going to Tonga to try to convert the people there. Consider this video a part 2 in my series about the Mormon Church and racism. The first part, you can see here, was a video about the Mormon Church's racism against Black people, and this video will be about the Mormon Church's religious colonization of Tonga and other islands. Now, I know from sharing this statistic in the past that the first thing that people do is they Google it, and you may see that the reality is that only 20% of Tonga is Mormon. There is a very specific and interesting reason for the difference in the numbers that the Mormon Church themselves report and the number you'll find on the Tongan census. I'm going to explain the difference between the two numbers in a bit. Trust the process. I promise I'm going to get there. Now, by comparison to Tonga, the Mormon Church says that about 2% of the United States population is Mormon, according to the church's newsroom. I also thought that this analysis was interesting by the Salt Lake Tribune. It says that Utah ranks second among the states for total population of Tongans, behind only California, but ahead of even Hawaii. So once Tongans come to the United States, of the ones who have come here, most of them are ending up in first California, and second, they're ending up in Utah. Utah is the center of the Mormon Church. That's where the church's headquarters are. If you're not familiar with me, I'm an ex-Mormon. I grew up in the church. I served a
I
mission.
never
I
would have
did all the
guessed.
devout Mormon things. And this channel is about sharing my experiences, talking about the history of the church, the doctrine pop culture moments with the church, and so consider subscribing if you want to see a video from me every single week. This video specifically will be about the Mormon Church's long history of working to convert and religiously colonize Tonga and other surrounding Polynesian islands. I'll also be explaining how the church and Mormon missionaries manipulated the doctrine in the Book of Mormon to basically say that this is actually a record of where Polynesian people came from, and other ways that the church made itself more interesting and more palatable to Polynesian people.
All right. Well, there's the first
Mm.
one, Mr. Aotearoa. What are your thoughts?
Before I go into my thoughts, Tua, did that play? Because the sound went fine, but I didn't see the pictures or anything. Did that play fine just for
Mm.
you?
It played fine just for me. It could be, I don't know. We tried to
Okay.
upload a bunch of videos. I don't know. But yeah, so you at least heard the sound?
Yes, heard the sound. It was perfect. No issues there, Tua. So, my thoughts are the manipulation. It's interesting why she's thinking that it was a manipulation and kind of where to make it interesting, because the Book of like I said, the Book of Mormon is story of where the people from Israel came over in a ship and settled the Americas. Would you say what, Central America, Tua? Would you say, was that fair, or South? What's kind of the debate there?
Well, the debate is there's a lot of debate. Some people, the most
Even to the
popular positions now are Mesoamerica or the Heartland model.
or
Those
the
are the
Heartland
two
or
most
the
popular.
U.S. Yeah, or just say
Yes.
the Americas. I'll just say the Americas. That covers all of that. Um, so, and this is just a historic record, and like what the Polynesian, what we've kind of Polynesianized advocated is where our origins of Polynesia come from, is the Americas. So there's no manipulation there because this is what we've always thought. That's Vaihi. If so there's no manipulation there. That's what I would kind of say on that regarding this sister, I would say, spiritual sister here that she's kind of going explaining this. So that's kind of my first thoughts there. I was just thinking with the LDS church coming to Tonga with some of my readings was, you know, I did. I did serve my mission in Samoa, which I think is the number one, even over the Tonga mission. Samoa is the number one mission because
Mhm.
one, it was through Samoa that kind of came down to spread the LDS faith in Halaufuli, to be exact, in Vavao. So, it was that's what makes it think. That's what I think of when she was sharing with the LDS gospel, kind of spreading through Polynesia, and I'm that's kind of
Mm.
how it started. So, to my understanding, it took a couple tries because Tonga was very strong in its Wesleyan, because Wesleyan literally saved us from uh, colonization, if you want to put it that way, kind of thing. So, the LDS religion was one of the later, very late compared to the Free Church of the Free Church of the Wesleyan Church, the Free Wesleyan Church of Tonga, and then I think the other broke off. Just Tonga, the Free Church of Tonga, and some other ones kind of broke off, and the LDS kind of came really late to the game, kind of thing. So it took a couple tries. So that's kind of my spilling there, Tua, regarding this lady, but no manipulation there to make the church trying to make it sound interesting, because there were already of our ancestors or people who were culturally um, understanding of Tonga's history, saying Vaihi was from the Americas anyway. So that's just my take there.
Yeah. Hey, this is what we love about having conversations. She has a right for her belief and
Hmm.
her positions. The couple questions, if I was sitting next to her, is a couple things I would say. Why would the church be so interested in Polynesians? They're not the highest population, as you mentioned, right? We're less than what, 1% of the population in America today, and it was way less in Joseph Smith's time. It was probably 0%, right?
Yeah,
For the most
it was
part,
zero in
right?
America. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
And so to me, she's taking a current perspective of Polynesians, because now I don't want to say we're super prominent, but for the size of our people, we are pretty influential for the size of the people with, and when I say size, not physical size, just the number of people. You look at The Rock, you look at the WWE with Roman Reigns, you look at the NFL, right? You look at Tony Finau, and he's breaking into the golf. We're spreading into all these different things. So now
I was
Polynesians are kind of looking cool, but back
yes.
then we had very little to offer in bringing to the table. So it doesn't make sense to me that Joseph Smith or the LDS Church had this grand scheme like, yeah, we're going to go get the Polynesians because they have all the money and they're going to be influential 200 years from now. That really didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Mhm.
Um, that's regardless of the message, right? We're just looking from a practical perspective. And what I find interesting is she speaks about, oh, the Mormons came and colonized, but trust me, I'm another person. Let me colonize your brain and tell you what was done. And I'm like, you know what? You're basically saying that our ancestors were dumb and that they couldn't choose for themselves their religion. So, and that we haven't learned anything yet, so we have to trust her. It's a trust me, bro. Another situation. I was like, no,
It's
maybe our ancestors knew something that you don't know.
it's trust me, sis. That's the one.
Trust me,
Trust me,
sis. My
sis.
bad, my bad. I don't know. Maybe I misgendered. Maybe I need to correct
Oh yeah,
myself.
yeah, yeah. Who knows?
So, so I think it's a little bit interesting that she already has that kind of thinking, like, oh, she's
Mm,
gonna come and save us and help us. But interesting. All right. Well, we'll give her, benefit of the doubt. She has a right to her
yeah.
perspective. But let's jump into the next one, Masi, and see, because we got like a handful of these that we're gonna
Yes.
react to. Let's jump to the next one.
Not even allowing them to wear makeup,
Let's do it.
to me, is pretty messed up.
Hold on. Are you able to see it, Masi, or hear it? It kind of froze on my end too.
Nope. It's frozen. I don't hear anything.
I paused it. I paused it. Let me replay it.
Okay.
But not even allowing them to wear makeup, to me, is pretty messed up. But here's the Liahona dress code for girls. Hair dye is prohibited. They have to have their hair braided. They are not allowed to wear makeup, which I found to be shocking. And no fake lashes either. So, why the church is not allowing girls to wear makeup in high school at the church-owned university, that did shock me. But not even allowing them to wear makeup, to me, is pretty messed up. And even just seeing that mission statement about their purpose, which is to get the kids ready to build up the kingdom of God, I think that that's pretty dark. And I really like the idea that you're not just allowing the children to have an education, but that you're saying, here's what this education is for. We're not doing this out of the kindness of our hearts. I think that's pretty messed up. So it seems like it's a pretty religious. And I also thought it was interesting because there's no Mormon church high schools in America. This is something that only exists in this Polynesian country. So I also found that to be fascinating, that the church doesn't do this type of education. The church does not operate any high schools in America. The education provided to Tongan students prepared them for life outside of Tonga, whether it was pursuing a secondary education or a job in America. And I saw this kind of rhetoric of like, we're gonna, this is gonna prepare you for life in America, several places. This was the best quote though. And while that sounds potentially positive, I think that there's a term for this, and it's called brain drain.
Okay. Here are my thoughts on this.
Go ahead.
Our sister here doesn't realize, because we went to high school and elementary school in Tonga. That's not just the LDS church that has those requirements. We went to a government high school, and you're not allowed to dye your hair. You're not allowed to wear makeup. You aren't allowed to do those things. You have to braid your hair, right? Like, this is what I think is funny, is like she's injected herself with her purely American
Palangi. Yeah.
lens,
Western. Yeah. Yeah.
Western perspective, and she doesn't understand, like, she's taking a point here that, oh, it's required of the church. Oh, it's the church oppressing people. This comes back to one of the things you said, Masi. Some people haven't recovered from their trauma. It sounds like she's had a
Yeah.
traumatic experience, and so now everything she sees, even though it's incorrect, she goes, oh, they're not allowed to wear makeup. They're not allowed to have lipstick. They're not allowed to have fake lashes. They're not allowed to. It's the church oppressing them. It's like, no, no, no. This is a cultural thing. You go, whether you go to Liahona or any other high school in Tonga, those are the standard rules. But
Yeah.
she doesn't see it that way, and she doesn't act that way. Now she says, oh, there's no high school in America by the church. The church offers online high school. I looked
Yeah.
at it for some of my kids. So there is
Oh,
online high
okay.
school
That's good to
that
know.
BYU offers. It's called BYU High School. And so it's like $3,000 a year or $6,000 a year, and you have classes and all these things going there. So it sounds to me like she had an agenda, or what, at least what I'm
Mm,
seeing, and
mm.
she maybe has some bitter. You know how, like, I get this too, when you don't like someone or something, it doesn't matter what they do. It's
Mm.
never gonna be good enough for me when I'm angry at someone or
Yeah.
something and I choose not to forgive them. I say it doesn't matter. They could say the nicest thing to me, and I'd be like, yeah, I don't like that.
No, you don't mean
That
it.
yeah,
You don't
yeah,
mean it. You don't mean it.
yeah.
You're doing it because
You're
yeah, it's
oppressing me.
convenient. Yeah.
I don't know. What are your thoughts to that part of the
Oh,
video?
Dua, I wanted to like just share. She has no idea. You can interject, Dua, and tell me if this is true or not in your experience. I think out of most of the high schools, Liahona is pretty lenient compared to like
Oh yeah,
Queen Salote. I was
oh yeah.
like, dude, she's saying with the no makeups. I remember Queen Salote. They've gotten a little bit better now. Queen Salote girls who go to Queen Salote College, dude, you talk about code and like even not during school, even after. If you're not wearing proper stuff, you can get reported and then you'll get disciplined at school. So like she has no idea out of all the schools, Liahona is another school you don't get smacked at school.
Yes,
Like and this is
yes,
the thing, she needs to at least talk to somebody who's lived in Tonga, and I can just tell them, out of all the
yeah.
colleges, high schools in Tonga, Liahona is probably the most lenient, very
Yes, most
lenient,
liberal out of all of them.
liberal. Yes, very liberal.
They
Like,
have school dances. They have
yes,
all these things, and it's like, okay, all right.
yeah. This might hurt probably some of the Leahona alumni. If I had a child in Tonga, do I like Lehona's a good school and stuff. But to me, there's a lot more like to me. I find it very more like what you say is more lean. I rather send my kids to more of a government or some other schools. I think if Leahona existed somewhere like in America, something it did, that would be a good school to send. But in Tonga, I think there's a lot more things that I would. This is just my personal opinion that the government schools do better, especially with disciplining and but because
Oh yeah.
I do find Leona very, very free spirited a little bit compared
You
to Tonga.
know,
That's just me. That's just me. That
no,
she and
100%.
it's so funny how she's seeing it from the Western lens and what she knows of America and Western ways that it's still so hindering. You know what I mean? But that's just
Yeah.
that came to. I don't know if you said you had something to share.
No, the like what she doesn't understand is New Zealand is, we used to say it's like mini America, right? We would
Mm,
always be like, man, living on Liahona campus is like, I remember when the electricity goes out at Liahona, within like 2 minutes, the backup generators kick in,
mm,
right? So you could lose.
mm.
They're like, I was like, dude, that was like next level. When we lived in Mua, when the power's out, you have no idea when that thing's coming back on, right? And I remember, like, getting, like, if there was a hurricane or something, it would take weeks before you get power. Everybody in the capital would be taken care of first. Liahona would have its backup generators. And us in Hahake, we'd have to
Mm.
wait until whenever they got there. And
We're the
so
last
for
ones.
her,
We're the last
yeah,
one. Nah, okay.
she has no idea that like the Liahona experience is actually very, very advanced. They have the
Mm,
best computers. They have one of the most
resources.
beautiful campuses.
Yeah.
In Tonga, it's the most beautiful campus.
Yes.
Even against BYU Hawaii, I think Liahona has a prettier
Mm,
campus than
good
BYU
point.
Hawaii in my mind. It's a very beautiful school, and she is talking about it like it's prison, right? She has no idea what it's like. Go and look at Tolo and Atele and what they do with the boarding schools there. It's like survival camp sometimes, you know. I remember I remember one of my friends was telling me was my age. He, when we first I went to Tonga High School, he went to Toloa, and his first time there, right? Because he's Form 1, and they sit down to say their prayers to eat their food because they have like a big thing of manioke and like
Uh,
soup and like maybe one or two pieces of sipi, like just a bare little
yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah.
And they're closing their eyes to say prayer. And he looked around, and some of the guys put their hand on top of their food. And he was a rookie, he didn't know.
Yeah.
He just closed his eyes. He says amen, and he looks down, and his pieces of sippy are gone. His two little pieces of sippy are gone
The one that
because
gave his meal a flavor, hey?
yeah, the one little piece of meat, and it was because that's why the guys, some of them had their hand over their food because
Uh,
they knew if they closed their eyes, because remember, like you said, this is corporal punishment. If you keep your eyes open during the prayer, mahal go ta'i,
mm,
right? So everyone has to
mm.
close their eyes,
Close their
and that's
eyes.
why some of the guys put their hand over their food.
That's so
So if
funny.
anyone reaches over, that they
Yeah.
can protect their food. But he was telling me after that he always put his hand over his food. But like that's the experience for a lot of these people. And here she is not realizing she's talking about Liahona and the church being oppressive when that
Yeah.
is
Not
a
in Tongan
first
standard.
world
Yeah.
experience in a third world country called
Yeah.
Liahona High School, you know?
Yeah.
And then add to that, like we interviewed our uncle who went to school there. They had
Yeah.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I talked to some of the guys who were from the outer islands. They loved it over there because at the cafeteria they get fed breakfast,
Mm,
lunch, and dinner, and they wouldn't even get 3 meals a day at home, and here
yeah.
they are getting well taken care of. So just shows how out of touch and how she is not in her league when she's talking about the experience of the church over there.
Yeah. And that's why it would have taken a better perspective, and maybe for her to even have a better let's just say commentary on this, if she just reached out to a Tongan guy that's in Tonga that has basic experience on explaining the standards of how they do things in Tonga,
Yeah,
especially in the college. Because like I said, when she was talking about the women not having the makeup, that's very basic. But
dude,
like I
that's
mentioned, that's what I mentioned with the whole. It's the same thing with the whole swimming. All the girls in Tonga, they all swim with their clothes on. That's normal in Tonga. So
yeah, like the
that's
normal day clothes.
normal day clothes. Normal day clothes. And then, like I said, comparing what the girls get in Liahona compared to Queen Salote with how they do stuff,
No,
it is not even close. So, like, man, yeah, come on,
I
man,
this is
come
one
on,
of
bro.
my favorite or funniest memories of Queen Salote. My last year in Tonga, we were sleeping at the high school so we could train in the
Eh,
mornings.
mm,
And I remember the first time I saw this, beginning of the season, it's my first or second day of training. We train in the morning, and then I take off my rugby shoes, and then I'm walking from the old Tonga High School field. You know how they had the tennis courts?
yeah,
Tonga
yeah,
side schools to the right, the
yeah.
tennis courts. So I'm coming through there and then coming to that big ovava tree right there. Right behind there is where they would cook their food,
Eh,
right? And then I seen people there in the morning before, but then this morning I actually was paying attention and I was looking over at the girl and she had like both hands, right? and she was like scooping this thing, and I was like, man, that's a big old spoon, you know. I was like, a big old spoon, and she's like, like she's
Like
shoveling
shoveling
something.
some cement, some dirt and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, and she's like, "Fwah, fwah." And I was like, man, that must be a huge spoon. And then homegirl picks up the spoon. It's a shovel. It's and I was like, so that's the real deal, man. Like when so it's the shovel that was designated as the spoon, right? They didn't use
Yeah,
it for shoveling dirt, but this is the kind of like stuff we're talking about. Like the kids wake up, they have to clean, they have to get the
yeah,
food ready, they do all that stuff. If they were to do that at Liahona, she would have been like, look, the church is using child slavery, child labor.
mm,
It's multi-billion-dollar church. But then you're like, no, that's actually Queen Salote. In Liahona, they have workers. They have
yes,
workers who do
full
this work.
time and good paid workers compared to other workers for other. A lot of them don't even get paid. It's voluntary. Some of
Yeah,
most of them
yeah.
actually. If I think about
Missionaries, right?
yo,
It's crazy. Oh Yahweh. Oh sister. Let's look at another one here. Let's see.
let's go.
Let's add this
Reading
one.
it literally made me tear up and start.
Oh Yahweh. So this one, she's talking about an essay. And we actually know this young lady. Knew her at
Mm.
BYU Hawaii. Very smart girl. She actually went to Harvard and was
BYU Hawaii or
did
BYU Provo, Tua?
BYU Provo. BYU
Okay,
Provo.
okay.
Yeah. So she was a year or two younger than me. She had an older sister there. This is Star Lotulele's cousin. They're
Ah,
related. So yeah, very smart girl.
mm.
But she has an interesting perspective, and this YouTuber is going to reference her here.
As I was reading it, it literally made me tear up and start to cry.
Why is it I don't believe that? I couldn't help that. I was like, did you really tear up? Did you? I don't know about that. I could be wrong.
I also really loved this essay. It's called To Be Young, Mormon and Tongan. It's by a woman named Moana Uluave Hafoka. As I was reading it, it literally made me tear up and start to cry. The reason I love this essay is I feel like she did a really good job at articulating how much of a struggle it is to have these different identities, to be Mormon and also to be Tongan. Here's a passage that really stood out to me. She shares a little bit about her Tongan ancestry, and then she says, too often these stories aren't even told, and even when they are told, they are sanitized for mainstream Mormon consumption under the patriarchal white gaze, which always emphasizes the completeness of our conversions and the extermination of our cultural heritage. These are the program's Sunday school responses and takeaways. They had so much faith. They feared God more than man. Families can be together forever. All of the above may be true, but what also happened? What was required for my foremothers? They had to forget their familial ties, forsake their ancestral lands, and eventually their ancestral tongue. And so as the video goes on, I'm definitely going to read more passages from this essay, but I wanted to compare what she says here with what I found in this article from LDS Living, which is from the Mormon Church.
Yeah, so she kind of references that video, but this article where it says why there are tattoos and strapless costumes at the Polynesian Cultural Center. But what are your thoughts on this? She's referencing this Tongan sister and her experience and how she
Ah,
teared up, Masi. How she
yeah,
teared
no,
up, as.
more like tear up, or she's like, "See, I knew it. The Polynesians are being oppressed, and look at this fellow Tongan lady is also confirming my beliefs." That's so funny. The patriarchal. See, I'm trying to figure out what does Moana, our Tongan sister here, is trying to say. This patriarchal dominance. What she's trying to say in our culture is like, I don't know if she really fully understands the function of a Tongan society. There's a lot. The patriarchal is more of the of more of that like political power, and maybe more of doing the ordering or preparing, like the ulmotua. It makes me think of the ulmotua's responsibility to ulmotua is like the oldest of the male side, which they kind of in charge and kind of gathering the people. And then remember, there's the other prestigious and important role of the
Mm-hmm.
fahu, which is I would say like more esteemed, especially in the social side tua of the family, and they work in harmony as to helping the family to achieve. And and the fahu is actually more kind of esteemed and kind of recognized kind of thing. The ulmotua is like, more of the male kind of doing the work kind of thing around. And then the fahu, which is your from the sister side, if this lady or the Palangi sister doesn't know that she's the female side, the sister of the brother, and she is more of an honorary kind of thing. And then her wisdom or her suggestion or advice to events take serious consideration, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's why it's so important with these two roles, with the way the male of the ulmotua and the female of the fahu, because sometimes, maybe people don't like the way the ulmotua sometimes do things. They'll go to the fahu to kind of maybe share their concerns, and then the fahu will kind of help the ulmotua,
Mm-hmm.
maybe say, "Hey, maybe how about this?" And then things can help do it this way. And then sometimes the ulmotua can also try to, they don't try to think, but they maybe work way around. If you have a difficult fahu kind of thing, you just work and deal with it kind of thing. So they kind of work in harmony. And I don't know if our Moana sister really understood what she means as a patriarchal, because Tonga, even before Christianity, that was a thing that was always kind of being practiced. We mentioned our previous videos where Captain Cook witnessed, I believe it was the Tuitonga, when the sister came on board to the ship, and him showing respect to the sister that came up to the ship. So this is way before Palangis come over, and I feel like Moana is a little not recognizing that the church is not, with the Tongans, not always dominating. It's just different functions of how they operate even up to today. So that's kind of my thoughts there regarding that, Dua. Yeah, I don't know if you had any addition or maybe a different perspective, or
Yeah.
something that I'm
Uh,
missing.
the area I want to kind of dive into and explore a little bit more is this idea. Let me put it this way. There's an idea that somehow our ancestors were oppressed, right?
Mm,
And that oppression came through colonization slash political, military, or religious. And we didn't with who expresses a very important perspective, and that is Tonga uniquely has a role in saying we were never colonized and we chose Christianity, right?
yes.
And we have to recognize that our ancestors, I feel like it's so easy for us to look back and say, oh, our poor ancestors, they didn't know what they were doing, blah, blah, blah. You may be able to say that in other cases, but it's very difficult to say that in the Tongan case
Mm,
because Tonga maintained independence and Tonga actually adopted Christianity and even pushed Christianity throughout Polynesia and the Pacific.
that's true.
That doesn't seem to me like someone who was oppressed into it. It sounds more like someone who saw the good and said, yes, that's a good thing. I can benefit from it, and I want others to benefit from it. And I think it's downplaying the intelligence of our ancestors to just say, "Oh, they were forced to give up their tongue. They were forced to blah blah blah." And I'm like, let's give our ancestors a little more credit. They
Mm,
made a choice. They understood the advantages of what Christianity was bringing, what the Western world was bringing, and they said, "Let's try and leverage that to our benefit." Right? And if that means we need to focus a little bit more on English and focus a little bit more on education. And here's a prime example. Our sister there, Moana, she went to the highly recognized institution in America, Harvard. She went there. I mean, how oppressed can that be?
Oh, here's
Right?
I just thought of a new term. Is she a privileged Tongan then, Tua? Is she a
Yes, Tongan
privileged
privilege.
Tongan privilege?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's an interesting thing. And then I'm assuming she's saying the patriarchy because the church is driven by the priesthood
Yes,
and
yeah.
the perception that the Western world is driven by the patriarchal, structure and everything else. And
Mm,
I have an interesting. I mean, it's kind of interesting thing for me to hear that you there's the church and then there's our culture, and the church does say, and I agree with it, the dominant culture should be the gospel of Jesus Christ. But you know what that dominant culture is? Love your neighbor, serve those around you. That is in direct alignment with the Tongan cultural perspectives,
mm,
right?
mm,
Take care of
mm.
the family unit. That's what the Tongan culture really strives to do. So there there are some things that you have to shed, maybe, I don't know, but this comes back to kind of like our perspective on tattoos and certain ancient practices. If I had to choose, keep tattoos or adopt Christianity, which highly aligns with what our ancestors believed,
Adopt
and
Christianity.
and I would adopt Christianity. Like, to me, that seems to fit a little bit better. Or, you know, leverage Western philosophy and structure to stay independent,
Mm.
or tattoos. I will take the adopt Western philosophy and government structure to maintain sovereignty. I would take those
Oh,
things,
heck yeah. Heck yeah. It's not
you
even
know,
close.
and I think we discredit, once again, I'll come back to this theme. We discredit our ancestors by saying, "Oh yeah, they were just forced to do that." Like, our ancestors didn't have the capacity to make a choice and say, "No, we chose this path."
Mm.
And I don't know, that to me is a part that I struggle with quite a bit with that position. Any thoughts on that, Masi, or
Ye-
you want to go to the next video?
Yes. Well, and I was just thinking in my head, Dor, when you're going to what, the new religion and our ancient religion, love God and no other God. Tongans were like that, you know. It was devoting to Hikudeo, and that's the God of Abraham that we go by now. So it's just, I don't know. There needs to be a little deep thought on that, on why Christianity was successful in the islands instead of saying it was such an oppressive thing. The other one I'm thinking of, to our sister here, Moana. I don't know. I don't understand. And it was another point I wanted to touch when she was saying with identity, how she find it difficult to be uh, Tongan and then a Mormon and then some other, I guess, whatever identity. I was like, what's? I'm trying to understand. Tua, what are your thoughts? Why are
Yeah,
I guess
I
she's not the only one,
actually,
because I've heard, I've heard many, maybe our Polynesian people. Um, Maybe this is more of this generation, Tua, that's kind of, that fourth, fifth generations of now of Polynesians, maybe that haven't been back to Tonga and really understand. I don't know. What do you think, Tua? What's some of the issue here
yeah,
with
I can
them
I can
struggling with their identities here?
I have some actually quote unquote personal experience with this. And growing up as, like, preteen, early teen, I always had a challenge with, this is Tua, right? This is Tua. This is the gospel. And I was like, I always had, like, I don't know if it's a fear or a concern that the only way to live the gospel is to no longer be Tua. Like, Tua
Mm,
has to be sacrificed to live the gospel. Because I felt like, and a lot of it was driven by my perception of, oh, people behave this way because they say they're living the gospel, and they're not really the same person as I thought I knew. But I had this weird, I don't know, it's weird, but it's a genuine concern. Like, my individuality would
mm,
be overcome by the gospel and the church. So I think that's what she's kind of saying. But what I realized is this: as I live the gospel of, which is very close to our culture, love your neighbor, do your best to do what's right, tell the truth, serve those around you, right? Commit yourself to something greater than yourself, whether it's your family, your church, your God. Like those are things that are overlapping.
Mm,
And what I recognized is there, when you live your culture, this is where it comes back, Mussy, where we talked about go back and just serve your family, go
mm,
back and connect to your family. If you do those things, because that's what the Tongan culture is all about. The Polynesian Empire was built off of family relationships. It was built upon, hey, yes, there's some short term benefit that I could get if I pursue my own interests. However, if I sacrifice my own interests to maintain the order and the structure and the relationship over
mm,
long distances or long periods of time, it's actually more benefit. It's of greater benefit to me. What I realized is as I lived the gospel, I soon realized that there really is no difference. It's the same thing,
mm.
right? It's the same thing, but we have an idea, or at least I had an idea of this is Tua, this is the gospel, and one or the other has to give way. And that's what I feel like she's saying is Tongan, the gospel, only one can be king. And I can empathize with that thinking, but I think what's not being discussed is why did our ancestors embrace the gospel so much? You can say, oh, they were forced to. It doesn't sound like it from what I've seen. What I see is our ancestors said, oh, love your family, serve your family, devote yourself to your faith to a higher being. They said, check, check, check. That's a good thing.
Mm.
That aligns with the law. And then there's also other benefits: technology, more opportunity for education. Yes, there's also some secondary benefits that come out of that. But that's where I think she's having a struggle is she's dividing those things and she is looking at her ancestors and her Tongan. It's kind of like, you know what it is? Unfortunately, she's taking, there has to be someone oppressed and there has to be an oppressor. That's the only way
Ah,
she sees it. And that's the way I used to see it before. What she needs to understand from my perspective, or at least from my perspective, is you don't always have to have an oppressor and oppressed. What you can have is overlap, common ground that you can converge on and say, yes, this is a good thing. I don't know if that answers your question, Mussy, but that's my best swing at that.
yeah, no, no, no. Good, Tua, because it explains your personal experience. Um, just I'm just trying to understand why is it so difficult. Like to me, and I'll just share some of my personal experience, my maybe of my evolution, I guess. For me, growing up, I knew us as a family, we were different. We were different. One, you can say because we have a full pure Palangi mom and a Tongan father living in Hahake in Mua. Already there,
Hmm.
we were different, right? So we already knew we were kind of different. So, and then we knew we were different because we were LDS. There were certain things we couldn't be partake of, and we just had to figure out some funny answers of why we don't do this. And sometimes we get a little, um,
Pushback.
pushback too from others saying, "Oh, don't give them the coffee or whatever," kind of that little teasing kind of stuff. So we knew we're different. So it just molded me. And then the more I've gotten older, I knew in my own personal beliefs, and this is both Tongan and LDS, that some of the LDS just doing it. It was just more of a cultural thing to of some of the LDS would do things. Most LDS families don't believe in discipline. You know, That's what I kind of noticed too. Don't believe in discipline. So we were different LDS family because one, our mother was LDS, father wasn't. So that was different. But I think even if Fade grew up in an LDS family, we would have still got disciplined anyway. Was so that's just being a honest opinion on that. So I knew we were kind of different, and even some of maybe some of the discussions, I knew I had kind of different thoughts. The older I got, just like doesn't mean that I was less LDS. It's just I just knew I have a different perspective. These are more of like the discussions and stuff. This is not the core doctrines kind of the church or anything, even though it was good to talk about them. And even being Tongan, sometimes the way you do cultural stuff, I knew it was like, dude, why do we do this? What do it? We can do it this way. We can achieve it the same results, but we can do it a different way and much more efficient way. Doesn't mean that I'm less Tongan or whatever. And like a perfect example to us, like even the way you like, for example, and this is like another thing that I've noticed with other Tongan families. A lot of Tongan families don't really discipline the daughters within their own family. But you know how we do it with my dad. Everyone was equal. The daughters got the same discipline if they didn't listen as the males. You know what I mean, to her? So I saw that, and
Equal
then that's how I knew
opportunity.
equal opportunity. A lot of Tongan families don't really do that, but we grew up, and that's another thing that I knew was different. So in and even the way we just engage and the way we do things is always been a little different. Doesn't mean that the way we do things was lesser than doing or less tongue doing than somebody else. No, it was just different. So to me, that's helped me to understand my identity. It's just all one thing because we're all kind of different, and everyone has different experience and how they navigate. So I think you're right, Dora, when it feels like she has to choose one of the other when it's really a mixed bag. That's what makes you you. You're different. You're supposed to be
Mhm.
different than
Pick what you
everybody
want.
else. Yes.
Yeah,
So
pick
that's
the
why
good
I
from
was always
both.
I was just interested, like, man, why is that such a thing? Because that's always a big, even here in New Zealand, your cultural identity and trying to figure out yours. Like, dude, why is it so difficult for people to figure out what their identity is? But I think it's just be you and what you are, and just try to be the best version of you. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Whatever your DNA makeup is, and your cultural, and trying to understand your cultural history, the correct history, and doing a dive of that, and you really learn it within the family, and just take that best version of it, and just be you. Don't feel like you're lesser because the majority do it this way, and you can do it another way that's unique to yourself, but still achieve the same result. That's what I'm trying to say. So
No,
that's just my opinion
100%.
there, Dua.
No, and I think that's kind of describing what I kind of was going through
Mm,
was like you're saying, I didn't have to sacrifice one for the other. I soon
mm,
realized I can live the gospel and still be myself, still have my own versions of what I think is right and wrong. And it's kind of led to, some of my not not traditional way of thinking about the gospel and what the scriptures say. And like you're saying, we also, I had a interesting experience with first understanding the term word of wisdom, because
mm.
I spent a
That's a
lot
good.
of time in
Mm,
Hoy, right? I
mm-hmm.
spent a lot of time in Hoy. I would go to the Shestong Atawataina of Sundays, the Fakafe and stuff. And I still remember we were at a funeral, and you know how much they come with the teapots, right?
Yes.
And everybody gets their cup, and then you either
Kiss their
get the
cup up. They
Milo
go. Eh, eh.
or the coffee. Yeah? And they say, hey, coffee or Milo, right?
Mm,
And I remember sitting, and it was me, Danny, Lee, and Unga, and they come to all of them. Oh, Milo, Milo, Milo. But you gotta remember, I was like living with Mafi and Siu and them.
yes. In
I
Hoy.
already, I, I already started drinking coffee over there. So, so when the guy came by and they all said Milo, it came to me and I said, "Oh, I'll take the coffee," right? And I was probably like 6, 7 years old. I said, "I'll
Mm,
take the coffee," and then I can't remember who it was, but one of the older three, they're like, "Hey, what are you doing? We don't drink coffee. And I was like, what? Oh, yeah, we don't drink coffee. Oh, okay, give me the Milo. But that was
Mm,
my first time like realizing like, oh, the word of wisdom
mm,
and how it was different. But that just goes to show that like, we grew up getting exposed to a lot of different ideas and
mm,
experiences, and it's we have to develop, like you were saying, our own identity. You have to have a strong understanding of who you are as a person,
mm,
and then you also have to realize, if you believe in a faith, that you can pick and apply the truths as you understand them. And this is why it's important to have a relationship with God. You don't have to rely on what your neighbor tells you need to do. You just go to God and you
mm,
work it out with God and what you should do.
mm.
um
No,
Interesting.
I got another example too of like even the Tongan, the way we do things. There's some Tongan families, like you know how you go to, you ever been to like one of those Lea Maris tour, like they do the exchanges of the
I've
groom
never
or the
been
guy.
to one. I've
Okay, so
never been to one.
I've been to one, and like, dude, it was so funny how this other Tongan guy, we're both Tongans, and the women were asking for help to lift up some of these ngaktus and stuff when we are displaying to go take it to the, you know, take it to the groom
Lay it
and
out.
stuff, lay it out and stuff. And then one of the other Tongan guys yelled up to me and says, "Hey, don't do that. That's only for the girls' job." And I was like, "What the heck? I don't see." That's his understanding of what he thinks what a Tongan guy should be doing. It's like, no, if one of the older ladies is saying to help to bring the ngatu and the,
Get the
the
job
Tongan
done.
kolo and stuff, it's get the job done. See, and this is the example. You know what? And this is the thing. If you're not comfortable in who you are as a Tongan, comments like that says to other Tongan guys is like, oh, he's probably right because I don't really know. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean, Tua? If you're not comfortable in your own things, like then you're gonna get probably be say, oh, maybe he is right. No, you're just doing it what he thinks is the right way. There's no such thing as it's only the girls who take the fala and stuff to say no. To the real Tongan way of doing it, my thing.
I've seen
If
it,
so,
guys do it all the time.
to me, this is how I did it. If an elder lady and a relative says to come and help and do this, you just go and do it. Tatalangofua, just like the gospel. Obedience will serve you better in life. That's the same. You see that
Yeah,
carrying over?
the
I take
parallel.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, that carries over. To me, just because of some guy says how maybe that's how his family do it. Maybe there's a lot more girls that they can come and maybe more of them can come and lift up the ngatu and stuff and help the display and decorate or whatever. Okay, that's how they do it. But I'm just saying those are examples that I think is playing with people's, like especially Polynesians, maybe who lived overseas for many generations. Comments like that will probably affect them, and they say, "Oh, makes them kind of play with their identities. It's like, I don't know what really if I'm doing is this the right way or whatever. But I'm just saying that's an example. It's like, no, that's not the right way. That's how he does it in their Tongan functions. I'm doing it because I'm just being a obedient a member of an extended family just doing it. That's just
Yeah.
another example there.
Not 100%. 100%. Let's go. We got a couple more of these, a few more of these.
Okay.
And oh, I don't hear the sound.
Nope, I'm not
What's
hearing it
going
either.
on here? What's going on here with our system? What's going on? Yeah. Let's try another
First
video.
arrived in Tonga in 1891. They got permission to teach from the Tongan king, and it seems that progress initially
All right,
was
this is
pretty
thank you.
slow moving because people found out about unsavory things to do with Joseph Smith and Brigham Young and polygamy. Essentially, they saw that the Mormon church was growing, and they decided to make it so that no more missionaries could come to Tonga. A Mormon leader actually acquired the transcript of the meeting where they passed this Passport Act, and it says that they identified teaching and practicing polygamy, teaching the people to be disobedient and disrespectful to government authorities, claiming to belong to the Church of Jesus Christ, claiming to be saints, and being rude as some of the reasons for keeping Mormon Mormons out of Tonga. I love that they just put being rude on there. I'm sure that someone will say, well, the Mormon church wasn't practicing polygamy in 1922. You would be wrong. Mormon leaders were still practicing polygamy at that point, even though they got rid of polygamy in 1890. There were Mormon prophets practicing polygamy up even till 1922 and past that. As I said, though, they got rid of this Exclusion Act pretty quickly, and so about 2 years later, Mormon missionaries started coming again.
Interesting.
What's your thoughts? What's your thoughts on that, Tua?
Well, it's kind of an interesting situation there. I mean, back then there was a lot of politics going on, and I don't think she understands that the big driver behind that was there's the Catholic Church, there's the Wesleyan Church, and then other religions. There's the I believe our ancestors saw that, like we talked about before, religion comes with politics. And so you have to take, if you let the religion get out of control, the politics kind of gets out of control. And so my perspective is a lot of that stuff was not necessarily, oh, the Mormons are bad. It was more, hey guys, the Tuitonga is with the Catholics, the Tupo the First is with the Methodists. There's already a power struggle here. And these guys are coming. Who knows? Does that mean America is going to get involved in our politics? I don't know. But to just say, it's like, they're rude, that's why we're going to kick them out. I was like, dude, do you know what some of the missionaries did that were probably worse than rude, and what these other people were doing? So I think it's just, she's looking at it with her own lens. And she's, whatever, like I said, whatever happens there, she'll look at it in a negative lens. And people can rightfully say, maybe for you and I, we look at a positive lens because our experience is a little bit more positive. But I will say this, because it was one of our ancestors who let the church back.
Yeah.
That when they let the church back, it was still illegal. And there was an issue with that. And the issue was no churches were allowed to re-enter Tonga. And for whatever reason, one of our ancestors decided we're going to let the church down. And that's why they have that Makafakamanatu in Tatakamo Tonga.
Yes.
Because it was one of our ancestors, and that GPS Nuku'alofa, or not GPS Nuku'alofa, that GPS Tatakamo Tonga that's over there, that actually, apparently, and I didn't know this until Grandma Piwela told me, that used to be Grandpa Siausi's land. And they traded it. That was the trade-off. They gave that to the GPS, and then the house in Tatakamo Tonga was given in exchange for that. But it's one of our ancestors that let him in, and it was technically, even though he was the Minister of Land or Prime Minister, it was technically against the law for him to do so, but for whatever reason, he allowed it. He overrode it. So it couldn't have been that bad. Could have been that rude because they were let back in. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, I got a quick question on that. With that timeline, did that happen before the kind of church establishment or teaching in Vava'u and Halaufuri? To my understanding, what's the timeline on that? With that thing that happened in Mu'a, allowing the church to come back, was that just for Tongatapu, different from the outer islands, or what's? Help me understand.
I don't know the details exactly, but I want to say the first set of missionaries came, they left. They were in Samoa, and then the first missionaries were sent from Samoa. They came through Vava'u first, and then when they were trying to come to Tongatapu, they weren't allowed to. They weren't able to land because the government. It was illegal for them to land, and no chief would sponsor them. Right? No one in authority would sponsor them. So that's when they met with one of our ancestors, and he said, "Okay, you guys go to Tatakamo Tonga. You land there. I'll deal with the king." Yeah. Right? Because rumor has it, Tupo the First, I think, was in Ha'apai. When he comes back, he hears of it, and supposedly this is the oral, the legend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly, he hears of it and he calls a meeting, and the prime minister who allows them in and his father both meet with Tupo the first, and then they come out of that meeting, and the missionary stayed. So whatever the discussion was, it wasn't enough to remove the missionaries. But the church gets established that one time, and then it grows to what it is now.
Okay. Okay. And we've been blessed. We've been blessed of that. Yeah, I remember stories of that, how we've been it's been a blessing, one of our
Yeah,
ancestors allowing that. Okay, yo. All right. I was just curious on that. My thoughts on this lady's comments here with the polygamy. I don't know if she understood that polygamy was kind of a popular practice before Christianity came to Thomas. So I don't know if that was such an issue kind of thing. And when Christianity came, then it was, and I feel like this is some of the blessings of being a Christian nation, having one, because I think it does help with your social um, behavior. And not only that, it allows you to simplify, because I feel like that is God, Heavenly Father, God's plan. The more simplify you can be on this earth, I feel
the
like that
better.
helps you to well, it just helps you because there's so many challenges. There's so many
Hmm.
deception. There's so many you can be deceived. So the more you can simplify your life and not having chaos or drama, the more likely you're able to make better decisions in your life. That's what I'm trying to say. So this is when you have one wife, and a husband and a family, it just simplifies your life to better navigate going forward. Because at the end of the day, our purpose here is to be here on this earth, experience what we can experience here on this earth, try to live a righteous life and do what's right and choose what is right in our free willing. And because there is a life after this life. That's kind of the purpose, is to really return where we kind of were before we came on this earth. So that's just my thoughts there. Do it with the whole polygamy stuff with what she kind of shared. That's nothing. I don't think Tongans had a problem with the church's history with the polygamy, because that was there's many societies who were, other than some other Christianity nations earlier, that polygamy was a very common practice. So, and it was back in those days, it was more of, creating an heir. It was more of just having the let's just say having the resource to take care of your multiple wives, because many, it was really, you could only, and there were some people who could only marry one because they didn't have much resources. They only married one because that's all they can take care of. It was more of your wealth, because you were able to take care of, because that during those times and those eras, if you didn't have land or didn't have the ability to grow in your land crops or anything, you were gonna starve. So that was a very, let's just say in those days, that you needed some masculinity to build, grow farms, and have command other men to kind of work for you to build farms. It was very there could have been women back in those days that were missing, but there could have been women that had the influence. If you were high rank or whatever for high status, you can probably achieve that. But for most cases, it was very difficult to have that. But it was a very common practice, the polygamy in Polynesia. So that's just kind of my thoughts there with what she was trying to say. Polygamy was kind of different, and how it was a negative connotation on, I guess, Polynesia, if that what she was kind of mentioning
Yeah,
on that regarding Tonga. So that's just me, my
yeah.
thoughts there.
No, 100%. Let's go to the next one here. Let's see, we can get
The
the.
church has invested a lot into Tonga between all the missionaries, the churches, the
Can you
temples,
hear that?
the
Nope,
schools,
I'm not hearing
and
anything. Go on.
yet of the
Hmm. Let's try that again.
obviously the church has invested a lot into Tonga between all the
Can you hear that?
missionaries, the churches, the temples, the schools,
No, no, it's
and
still
Oh, maybe
loading
that's
from
a
what I.
sign. Maybe that's a sign. There's only the last two videos, but I think we get the point here. She's
Mm,
she's I think it's interesting that she selected Tonga,
I know. Out of
Polynesia.
all the Polynesia, right, Tonga, eh?
Yes.
Hawaii's more
Yeah.
famous in America. Uh,
Hmm.
that's the king. But she wants to talk about Tonga.
Well, and the thing is, she might have had a better position if she picked Hawaii or somewhere that got colonized.
Yes.
But she picked the one that never got colonized, the one that freely chose Christianity, the one who, like you're mentioning, has the greatest influence of the church. And also she picked the only subgroup that has multiple stakes in foreign countries. I don't think there's any
Mm,
other group that has that level of influence on the church. I
mm,
really don't. I don't know. So I think she miscalculated by trying to say this is the most oppressed group. Look, 60%. Go and look how many states, Tongan states, are outside of Tonga. I don't think there's any other ethnic
there's
group
not. There's not.
who
Yeah.
has as many Tongan states outside of Tonga, and I don't think it's because they're oppressed. Let me put it that way.
Mm,
and
mm,
and I don't think this church that has billions and billions of dollars is so interested in holding on to the Tongans because we give them billions of dollars. I think
mm,
it's whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. You can say, yeah, they they their doctrine's incorrect, and how they say that Polynesians come from the Book of Mormon, blah blah blah. You
mm.
can say that, but you can't say, "Oh, they were doing it because they were extracting resources from these people." Like I was like, dude, we are one of the. When you look at it from a temporal sense, in many ways, we're insignificant just because of the population size. We don't contribute millions of people. We don't
Mm,
contribute billions of dollars. But however, we're one of those that are small but mighty. We
mm.
we we may not be able to give you billions of dollars, but we can build a community anywhere in the world. We can go and build a strong community anywhere in the world. And how do we know that? Because there's Tongan states and wards all over the planet in countries where Tongans are foreigners,
Yeah.
right? And this is in comparison to some ethnic groups and countries that have millions upon millions of people, and they can't even have as many stakes and wards as we have. So you
Mm.
can't say we're oppressed when we're able to do these things on a
We were
scale
wanting to
that,
grow.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts on that, Masi, before we go to our next topic?
My closing thoughts on that, Dua, just to add on, I think there is like some Hispanic stakes, but I always say Hispanic is, they speak in Spanish. It's not like a Tongan steak, which is it's, they have a Tongan. It's, depending on the most Tongans, they always do it in Tongan and stuff. That's a indigenous. I don't know if there's a indigenous. To me, that's even rare in the LDS faith, an indigenous way
Hmm.
of how they communicate. Hispanics, they're, of course they're not like British, but Hispanic is they speak in Spanish, which is language spoken in Western Europe. It's different from. It's not a indigenous language culture that they're influenced in the LDS faith. And you're talking about Tonga is the only one, to from my understanding, other like indigenous from a indigenous perspective is the only one to have states outside of Tonga. And we're talking about multiple states, right? Especially California and Utah. Those are the only two that have multiple states of Tongans. And they're choosing to keep, and they want to keep growing it. And that's not oppressive at all. And this is their own free will choosing it. That's kind of my thoughts there, Dua. And hopefully, she can reach out, maybe get a better, she better maybe create some better narrative and talking points if she kind of just reach out to just a basic Tongan that just experienced Tonga and maybe its history with Christianity and the LDS faith.
Mm. Maybe let's do this to close it out. Let's read the summary that Grok gives us.
Oh, okay.
Right? Let's See if we can share this. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Want me to read
Let's
it,
see how.
Aqua, that first one,
Yeah, let's
or
see.
the
Yeah,
influence?
let's read it and see how oppressed Tongans are by the church.
All right. Influence of Tongans in the LDS Church. Membership in Tonga. High per capita membership. Tonga has the highest percentage of LDS members per capita of any nation. As of 2024, the LDS Church reports 68,609 members, representing approximately 60% of Tonga's population, estimated at 106,000 to 109,000. However, the 2011 Tongan census reported 18,554 self identified Mormons, which is 18.01%, and the 2021 census noted 19.62%, suggesting a discrepancy due to the LDS Church practice of retaining inactive members on rolls. Active membership is estimated at 20 to 30% of reported figures, or roughly 12,500 to 25,000 active members based on congregation sizes and attendance patterns. Cultural context. Tonga's Christian heritage is noted in Burley's work, stems from King George Dubois I's 1839 dedication of Tonga to Christianity, fostering a religious culture that aligns with LDS emphasis on Sabbath observance, family, and community. Burley 2023. This cultural compatibility combined
Hmm.
with LDS schools like Liahona High School has driven conversions. Number two, wards and stakes in Tonga. Congregations. As of 2024, the LDS Church reports 175 congregations in Tonga, including 139 wards and 34 branches, reflecting a robust organizational structure. Wards typically have 100 to 150 active members, suggesting active membership aligns with the lower estimates above. Stakes. Tonga has 21 stakes, with 15 on Tongatapu, 1 in Ewa, 1 in Ha'apai, and 3 in Vava'u, plus plans for 2 additional stakes. The first stake was organized in 1968, marking a shift to local leadership. Stakes like Nuku'alofa Tonga, Malapo, 2013 demonstrate ongoing growth. Significance. The high number of wards and stakes indicates strong local leadership and community engagement, with Tongans leading most church units since the 1960s. This aligns with Burley's observation of Tonga social stratification emerging from early Lapita settlements, which fostered leadership structures adaptable to LDS priesthood hierarchies. Burley 2023. Temples in Tonga. Nuku'alofa Tonga Temple, dedicated in 1983 by Gordon B. Hinckley, renovated in 2007 and rededicated by Russell M. Nilsson. This temple serves 41,000 members across Tonga and the Line Islands. Over 50% of Tonga's population toured it before its 1989 dedication, and 40,000 visited pre 2007 rededication, showing broad community impact. Neafu Tonga Temple, announced in 2019 and under construction since 2021, this second temple in Vava'u will serve 4 states, reducing travel burdens, 90-minute flight or overnight ferry to Nuku'alofa. Cultural significance. Temples are central to LDS worship, and their presence next to Liahona High School reinforces Tonga's status as a sacred hub. Burley's discussion of Nukureka's role as a cultural cradle parallels the temple's role in anchoring Tongan LDS identity. Burley
It's
2023.
doing a lot of comparison from our next topic because I was asking it some questions and the church. So it's kind of
Mm,
interesting that it's injecting here the Burley research, which is what we're going to look into the next one. Want me to read the next
nice.
ones, Masi?
No, I can keep going, Dua. I can keep going here.
Okay.
So, Tongan influence in foreign countries, diaspora membership. Tongan Latter-day Saints have migrated globally, strengthening the LDS Church in countries like the United States, Australia, New Zealand, Samoa, American Samoa, and Japan. An estimated tens of thousands of Tongan ancestry members live abroad, with significant populations in Utah, second highest Tongan population in the U.S. after California. Tongan speaking units. United States Tonga has over 30 all Tongan wards and several stakes, including the Salt Lake West Tongan stake 2019 and the Orem, Utah 2nd Tongan stake 2019. The San Francisco, California East stake 1992 was the first Tongan speaking stake outside Tonga. Other countries, Tongan speaking wards and stakes exist in Australia, New Zealand, Samoa, and Japan, reflecting Tongan missionaries and migrants spreading LDS teachings. Missionary impact. Tongans serve missions at high rates, often exceeding the number of foreign missionaries in Tonga. The Tonga Outer Islands mission, created from the Tonga Nuku'alofa mission, focuses on local missionary service, enhancing Tongan influence abroad. Cultural export. Tongan cultural values, such as family-centric traditions noted by Burleigh in early Lapita societies, resonate with LDS teachings, making Tongan members effective ambassadors of the faith. Burleigh 2023. Number 5, or is it broader influence?
Mhm.
Educational contributions. LDS schools, particularly Liahona High School, have been pivotal since 1948, attracting non-members, 35% of students, and fostering conversions. These schools integrate gospel teachings, reinforcing Tongan LDS identity. Leadership with faith. Tongans have led stakes, missions, and schools since 1960s, with notable figures like Lord Furivai, a noble baptized in 2010. Their faith exemplified by early converts like Devita Muri Kinikini aligns with Tongan Christian legacy. Burleigh 2023. Global reach. At the 1991 centennial celebration, Russell M. Nelson blessed Tongan saints to radiate faith worldwide, a prophecy fulfilled through migration and missionary work.
Mm.
Challenges, discrepancies in membership data and lower activity rates, 20 to 30%, suggest challenges in retention, particularly abroad, where some Tongans double affiliate with other denominations. That's like us too. It reminds me of our early childhood. We kind of go to different denominations and have different affiliation.
Yeah, different
Some
flavors, different flavors.
different flavors. Summary: Tongans wield substantial influence in the LDS Church due to their high membership. 60% of Tongans' population, though 19% self-identify. Extensive network of 175 congregations and 21 stakes, and 2 temples, Nuku'alofa and Neafu. Abroad, Tongan diaspora strengthened the church through Tongan-speaking units in the U.S., Australia, and beyond, driven by missionary zeal and cultural values rooted in Tongan's Lapita heritage, as Burleigh describes 2023. Their educational contributions via LDS schools and leadership since the 1960s underscore their role as a cornerstone of the Polynesian LDS identity, though retention challenges persist.
Interesting. I
Very
mean,
interesting.
it's to me when you read that whole thing and you're like, for a small group to have such an influence, are we really oppressed, or did we leverage truth and opportunity to propel our people forward into new opportunities? That's the way I see it. I mean, I think there doesn't have to be an oppressor and oppressed. I think our ancestors understood what they were doing, understood the exchange that was happening, and said, I'm still coming out net positive in joining the church and pursuing not only faith, but education and new opportunities overseas. Like we always say at the end of every show, right? Stay curious and don't be afraid to ask the tough questions. And until next time, peace.
Peace.